everybody.
Hello.
Hello, hello. I'm just going to keep talking while everyone finds their seats. And as soon as we are all settled, I will stop talking because I am not who you came here to see tonight. First of all, can everyone in the back hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. I've never had a problem being too quiet before. But I'm Allison Sansoni. I'm the program director here at the AWM, and I'm just here to welcome you all to the program and just go over a couple of really quick housekeeping notes before we start. If you enjoy tonight's program and you want to support the work that we do here at the AWM, you can come see us at the front desk after the program, and you can join as a membership. Join with a membership, and receive advance notice of special exhibits and things like our monthly happy hour series that returns on March 11th with an Irish pub night for St. Patrick's Day. We're going to have trivia and pub stories. It's going to be a good time. Following tonight's presentation, if you have questions for our performers, they are willing to do a little bit of Q&A afterwards, so please stay seated and ask your questions there. Thank you all for being here and for supporting the past, present, and future of American writing. We're here tonight during Black History Month to witness the moment that galvanized the civil rights movement. The decision to publish the photo of Emmett Till following his lynching showed hundreds of thousands of people what they had been determined not to see: the brutality and consequences of systemic racism. Presenting her play, Emmett's Photo, tonight are Nikki Carpenter, David Goodlow, Gabrielle Lott Rogers, Jelani Julius, Frederick Paul Williams, and Jairika Guest. Please join me in welcoming them.
Emmett's Photo by Nikki Carpenter. Scene 1, Chicago, 1955. The office of Negro Digest Publishing Company. The mod-themed orange and brown walls are adorned with larger-than-life photos of Lena Horne, a fashion fair model, and Jackie Robinson. The latest music hit, Ain't That a Shame by Fats Domino, is playing on a small retro radio while the everyday affairs take place. Era is deep in thought, earnestly typing on a typewriter, while Alice is tidying up the office, dusting, watering plants, etc. John sits at his desk, the most monumental desk of them all, conducting a business call on a black rotary phone. His desk is messily adorned with stacks of paper and published issues of Ebony, Jet, Negro Digest, and Tan magazines.
Richard, if you just give us a little more time, I'm sure you can see an increase in your sales. How about the next 5 issues? We'll also run your ads in the Jet magazine. We hate to see you go. I understand.
John hangs up the phone.
Progress Tailoring decided to pull their ads?
Yep. We're the largest Negro publication in the country, and yet they have us under a microscope when it comes to their ads. I bet they're not pulling the ads from Time or Life after 1 month. Back to the drawing board.
John picks up the phone and begins to dial a few numbers. David and Simeon enter. David has a camera around his neck and a small briefcase. Simeon is carrying a small notepad with a pencil neatly tucked behind his ear. John hangs up the phone.
How'd it go?
I've had better days.
How is Miss Bradley holding up?
She isn't. She collapsed when his body arrived at the train station. Can you believe they nailed the casket shut and had a state seal on it ordering it not to be opened?
What?
I can believe it. Sounds just like Mississippi.
Ms. Bradley didn't pay that no mind. She asked Mr. Rayner for hammer because she was determined to open the casket herself. But he managed to get it open.
You can smell that body a mile away. That boy didn't deserve that.
I've covered racist crimes in Mississippi before, and I have never in my life seen anything like what they did to Emmett. That boy's body was beyond recognition. It looked like something from out of this world. Ladies, may I speak freely?
Sure, I don't mind. Go on.
He had one eye just hanging on his face. They must have pulled or knocked a few of his teeth out because they were missing. His left ear was missing. His head, well, it appears to have been sawed into 2 pieces. And there was a gunshot wound on his head that we could see straight through.
Oh my God.
I had a chance to develop a photo. I have to warn you, it's pretty gruesome, so look at your own risk.
David reaches into his work bag and pulls out a photo of Emmett's body. Era, John, Simeon, and Alice make a semicircle behind David as he slowly holds the picture up for everyone to see. Everyone responds in their own individual way.
Lord.
Fade to black. Scene 2. Let the world see. Mamie Till Bradley weeps in front of an open wooden casket. We hear a voiceover of a woman singing, "Oh Freedom." The voiceovers of people attending Emmett's funeral are heard. Some are screaming, weeping, and moaning while saying things like, "He was only 14 years old. That was her only son. I'm gonna miss Bobo. You can't trust white people further than you can throw them. Because he whistled at a white woman?" Simeon and David come to escort Mamie off the stage as she continues to weep. Fade to black. Scene 3. The decision. The office of Negro Digest Publishing Company. Era sits at her desk writing on a notepad. Simeon is earnestly typing on a typewriter at his desk. David is examining photos at his desk, and John is on a phone call. Alice enters. The mood is somber.
I'm sure the Alamo barbecue ads will do just fine in Ebony magazine. One thing for sure, our readers love to cook and try new recipes. What do you say? I see. Maybe next time.
John hangs up the phone.
How was the service? Where were you? I tried to make it, I really did. I just couldn't see him in that casket like that.
Alice sits at her desk and begins to organize paperwork.
I think all of Chicago came to Emmett's funeral.
Correction, all of Negro Chicago.
True.
I wonder what Mrs. Bradley's gonna do now.
She'll be heading down to money for the trial.
You really think she's gonna go down there? To the same place they killed Emmett?
You really think she's not going to go? I'd go if it were my son. Someone has to speak up for him.
The telephone rings. Alice answers the gold rotary phone on her desk.
Negro Digest Publishing Company? How can I help you? Yes, who's calling? Mrs. Bradley. Yes, I'll transfer you to Mr. Johnson right away. Hold, please.
Did you say Mrs. Bradley? Emmett's mother.
Yes, I believe so.
She asked for me.
Yes, sir.
Simeon and David give him looks of uncertainty. John picks up his phone.
Mrs. Bradley, this is John. How are you holding up? Yes, I can only imagine. Oh. Okay, well, I understand. I'll see what I can do. All right now.
John hangs up the phone.
She wants us to publish Emmett's photo in chat.
The same photo that the defendant published a few days ago?
Yes, that photo.
Well, what did you tell her?
I told her I'll see what we can do.
But we're not actually gonna publish it, right?
I don't know.
We can't publish that photo.
We can't do anything because we don't make the decisions.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. It's
It's just what, Alice? A Negro mother sends her 14-year-old baby of a son down to Mississippi to enjoy sweet time with his family before school starts back. This is nothing outside of the norm. Negro folks have been doing this ever since we came north. You know what they say. Boys will be boys. Maybe Emmett whistled at that white woman. Maybe he didn't. But whatever happened, he didn't deserve that. Alice, they lynched an innocent Negro child.
I know. But what does us publishing that this horrible photo have to do with anything?
They are going to get away with murder. Miss Bradley had to have the Chicago authorities demand that they send Emmett's body back home. They're trying to get away with pure murder, and they just may. We already know the trial is going to be a mockery of justice.
Sure will.
But we have an opportunity, an obligation to tell Emmett's story. So even if they do get away with it, the world will know the truth.
But the Chicago Defender already published the photo. What difference is it going to make? I just saved enough money to finally get a place of my own. We don't need to go stirring up any trouble. I have a lot to lose.
Seems like you've already lost.
Era.
I didn't mean it like that. But why don't you care?
I do care. I just don't want to stir up any trouble.
Why not?
Because my family almost lost everything for being too loud, for caring too much. My grandmother, God rest her soul, made some of the best cakes you ever tasted. They were so good, she made a name for herself. Folks from all over town would come to buy her cakes. Negro and white folks. One day some stocky white man come a little too late asking to buy a few slices, but she had sold out. Well, he must have thought he was due special treatment because he demanded she make some more. Can you imagine? Bake a cake after the sun has gone down. And for who? You? You ain't God. Grandma politely told him no. But once he started to become irate, she gave him a piece of her mind. The next night, some boys came and threw rocks at our house, busting out all our windows. The night after that, an angry mob of white men with guns came and just stood across the street from the house. They just stood there, watching and mocking folks as they came to buy cake. The night after that, no one came to buy cake because they were too intimidated by the men with the guns. My grandpa, and mother begged my grandmother to take the man a cake and apologize. Apologize for what? Was my grandmother's response. Turns out the man was thinking the same thing because he returned a few days later with a mob of men with guns. This time, they barged into our house and trashed it. They threw everything everywhere, including the freshly made cakes that my grandmother spent her precious time on. I was so young, but I remember them putting a gun to my grandmother's head, demanding an apology, and do you know she still refused to say sorry? They knocked her on the ground and told her as long as she lived in Georgia, she would never sell a nigger cake again. When my grandfather came home from work and found out what happened, we all packed our bags and left for Chicago that night. That was 13 years ago. I love my grandma and with my entire being, and I miss her every day. But if it was me, I would have just gotten it over with and said sorry.
When I was younger, Negro and white used to live right next door to each other. But all that changed when we heard about a Negro man who was lynched for winking at a white woman. We were stunned. We couldn't believe that type of thing could happen in Arkansas City. Everything was different after that. In order to stay safe, I made a conscious effort not to blink my eyes in the presence of a white woman. That man was lynched for winking at a white woman, and Emmett was brutally murdered for whistling at a white woman. Unbelievable.
And what do we as Negro women get, huh? Where's our protection? Where was your grandmother's protection, Alice? For centuries, Negro women have nurtured their babies, cooked their meals, and cleaned their houses. What do we get? Where was my protection when my family moved from North Dakota when I was a child? I had to endure being called a nigger. People staring at me and touching my hair like I was an animal at the local zoo. The precious, scared white woman gets all the protection. Emmett must have been scared. Where was his protection? I say we published the photo to send a message to white folks. No more apologizing when we're the ones who should be receiving the apologies. Negroes, sweet and docile, meek, humble, and kind. Beware of the day they change their mind. Enough is enough.
David, Simeon, what do you all think?
Well, John, what you're doing here has changed my life. I've always wanted to take photos since I was a little boy. Never imagined I'd be able to take photographs of Negroes and get paid for it. But I must admit, I don't want to jeopardize what we've been able to build here. What you've built.
So we lose a few ads. But we can make a statement and we're able to reel in the advertisements that matter.
Sadly, money doesn't work like that. I wish it were that simple. My mother allowed me to sell her furniture for $500 so I could have the money to start this company. That was 13 years ago, and now look at us. We're still here. Has it been easy? No. Has it been worth it? Yes. There's nothing like the Negro Press. We get to tell our stories our way. But I must admit, I don't know how I feel about publishing this photo.
John, I will help you find more advertisers. I'll work overtime. We can get through this.
It's not that, Era. Well, not completely.
What is it?
They don't respect us. Never have, never will. This building we're standing in represents success and hope. We've come a long way from our humble beginnings at the Supreme Life Building. But the fact that I couldn't outright purchase this building still bothers me at times. I, myself, a successful Negro publisher with the money in hand, couldn't buy this building. When I called to inquire about buying it, they asked the name of my publishing company. I said, Negro Digest Company. All of a sudden, the building was no longer for sale. So I hired a white lawyer, Lewis Wilson, to contact the people, and what do you know, the building was indeed still for sale. I came down here with Lewis to look at the space, but not as myself, John H. Johnson, the founder and owner of a successful Negro Digest Publishing Company. No, I came as a janitor who worked for Lewis. And that is how we were able to buy the building. We had to purchase it in a trust in order for my identity to remain unknown. If we don't publish the photo, they don't care. If we publish the photo, they don't care what happened to Emmett. They care about the audacity of Negro folks. Next thing you know, they're doing everything in their power to take everything away from us, and more advertisers are pulling their ads or refusing to work with us. It's been hard lately. But publishing this photo could make it harder.
I understand. This is something the white press will never understand. If we don't publish this photo, we risk becoming sellouts to our race. If we do publish the photo, we risk being deemed as unsafe to white advertisers. The only comfort we have is knowing we fulfilled one of Miss Bradley's wishes. Maybe, just maybe, did our part to be on the right side of history.
We'll run the story, but not the photo. See you all Monday morning.
John exits.
Well, that's that.
Fades to black. Scene 4. Sold out. The office of Negro Digest Publishing Company. Ira, David, and Simeon are busy printing out more issues of Jet, packing the issues in boxes, typing fast, etc. The mood is intense as they are in a rush to print and deliver more issues. Alice walks in and is startled to see them there. She checks her watch.
What's happening? He changed his mind. He changed his mind. Who?
John, the article was published with Emmett's photo and we can't keep them on the stands.
David walks and sets a box full of magazines by the front door. He returns to his desk to pack more boxes. Era walks up to Alice and gently places her hands on Alice's shoulders.
Everything is going to be okay. Do you hear me? Do you believe me?
Alice and Era embrace.
All right, now we got work to do. Can you call Mr. Rogers' newsstand and tell him we're bringing more magazines over shortly?
Got it.
Alice goes to her desk and begins to make a phone call. John enters.
Morning, everyone.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
John, on behalf of everyone here, we just want to say thank you.
John inhales and takes a moment to let it sink in. He exhales and nods his head.
No. Thank y'all. Now let's get to work.
The characters are frozen on stage. Voiceover.
John H. Johnson and his team made the courageous decision to publish the unedited photos of Emmett Till's body, photographed by David Jackson. The issue went on sale September 15th, 1955, and sold out immediately. John H. Johnson wrote in his book, Succeeding Against the Odds, that he had reservations, but decided finally that if it happened, it was our responsibility to print it and let the world experience man's inhumanity to man. Those photos are often credited with sparking the civil rights movement. And Rosa Parks said the reason she refused to give up her seat is because she thought of Emmett Till.
Fade to black. All Right by Kendrick Lamar should begin to play as actors take their bow. End of play. So this is the moment if you all have any questions or something that may have stood out to you all or something you may need clarity on, we can, talk about it.
How did you find the material that leads to the discussion in the office?
So John H. Johnson, he wrote a book called Succeeding Against All the Odds. And most of this material is historical. So Mrs. Bradley, Emmett's mom, she did call him and ask him to post I'm a millennial, to publish the photo in Jet magazine that actually happened. And Simeon, played by Jelani, he was the reporter who actually went back down to Money, Mississippi with Mrs. Bradley for the trial. David took the photo. He was in the room. How many of you guys have actually seen that photo? Okay, so he was in the room. And if you watch the documentary, it's called The Untold Story of Emmett Till by Keith Beauchamp. Mamie Till is saying what happened. So she's saying, like, they pulled out my baby's teeth. They cut his head. They did, like, she goes through all of that. So most of it is historical. Alice's character is a figment of my imagination. We need somebody to, like, break it up a little bit. But Era Bell Thompson was a real reporter at Negro Digest Publishing Company, editor. Yeah, so these are all historical characters.
Can I do a quick follow-up? I should probably know this, but I don't. What was the brush back, if any, or the result of the publication at the time?
What was the result of them publishing the magazine, the photo?
Yeah.
It sparked the civil rights movement. So they published the photo that, I want to say September 5th, right? 1955. I can't find that issue anywhere. If you find it, let me know.
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah, thousands. So it's in Smithsonian's and things of that nature. But that photo is what made Black people say enough is enough, because lynchings were happening throughout the South. It was common, it was a social thing to go to a lynching, but to actually see Emmett's photo as a little boy, and then to see that, like, what is that? That's a human, and so that is what got it. I say it was maybe our Trayvon Martin for that time, maybe. Yeah.
I think one thing that, like, contextually I learned when we were doing the play was just how widely distributed Jet magazine was. It was a massive publication. So while these things happened all over the country in a small place with nobody telling a story, this was the first instance where that story was told nationally. Like, thousands of people received this, and that's why Mamie wanted it in Jet. That was the only vehicle black folks had at the time to reach all of us across the country at one time. The Chicago Defender was just distributed here.
In Chicago.
In Bronzeville,
So
basically.
locally, people knew about it because Mamie and Emmett were here,
Yeah.
you know, but for it to be in the Jet magazine nationally, it reached so many black people. And if you've never seen the unedited version, unedited copy of the picture, you should look at that because it is atrocious. It is, yeah.
I just want to say thank you. You all did a really terrific job, and it's just really powerful, you know, to hear and have it acted in the stage reading. And a couple things I wanted to say. I appreciated in the play the nuances of differences of opinion and why there would have to be a decision that it wasn't that easy. I've learned quite a bit about, you know, the story. I know people who actually went to school with Emmett Till.
Wow.
I've been fascinated by its importance, its historical importance, but I have to say, personally, I did not know that story until I saw Eyes on the Prize on PBS. And I just think the more people know about it, even all these years later, you know, 70 years later, a lot of people do not know it. So I applaud you for doing the stage reading of the play, and I hope to see it produced in Chicago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, like, you know, because like I said, I'm a millennial, so we're gonna get out, we're gonna protest, not even gonna think about it, like what, you know. But people were scared. Like lynchings were a real thing, and even like there's photos of. If you haven't seen Great Migration, PBS, they talk about that family, I forget their name, who came up from Texas, I think, but it's a photo of them, and they were fleeing from being lynched. And so, like, when you think about, it was really brave what she did, because even if you see the footage of in the courtroom, like they're like, you know, pointing guns at her, you know, and like, and she's walking through that to still get some type of justice for her son. And so, you know, it was anytime you see any black person at that time, like doing anything, it was very brave to even write a sign or, you know, or sign a petition. Like it was an act of bravery, because you could have lost, many people did lose their life doing this, so yeah.
Yeah, she had to petition the mayor
Yep.
of Chicago, you know, to, you know, like, hey, because they wouldn't even
They
want the
buried
body
her.
to come
Yeah.
up. And they sealed the casket and said she couldn't open it.
Put a state seal on it.
Yeah, and so, you know, Chicago kind of stepped up like, hey, man, you know, send it back,
Yeah.
the body, to which, you know, she defied that or whatever. So it was, you know, trying times, of course.
Yeah.
I think these stories are important right now too. Like, we had the opportunity to read this at the University of Chicago, and my kids came. They're 16, 13, and they never heard of Emmett Till. And I was like, oh my God, what happened? Where did I go wrong? What did I do? But I think sometimes like things get reduced, you know. And given the national, you know, sentiment we're having right now, rolling back Black history and other things, like this is American history, and part of the sharing the story is so we can be better people, right?
I think there's also something to be said about people not wanting to go back to a painful story, and it's like, and I've been seeing this more and more. There is change. There's change in seeing pain and knowing like that is still a real thing, just as much as the joyous moments, and just as much as the triumph. Like in order to get triumph, you have to go through friction and trial and challenge, and unfortunately, like that is what occurred. But if people didn't see it, people wouldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's also of note that both Mamie and Rosa, at that time, Mamie, that was a galvanizing event, and that she ran to it, not from it.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the norm at that time. It was very difficult and challenging and courageous, because even her own people, not for a lack of anything, somewhat protection, so to speak, like stirring up stuff, it's just in the DNA, like, no, don't stir up, or whatever. She went against the grain, and that is of note, you know, which, as she stated, asking that question, it inspired Rosa Parks.
Yeah.
she decided right then at that moment, whatever the reason, tired or whatever, it's like, man, hey, look, right here, right now. So,
Yeah.
Several years ago, I saw my nephew Emmett and just thought it was so powerful. I just wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
No, is that a?
It was an Oscar-nominated short live-action film,
Oh wow.
but it's so good.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely need to check that out. I am friends with Keith, who did the Till, the film, and he was very close with Mamie, and he was just very adamant about getting the story out. He's been like a keeper of the Till legacy for a long time, but I definitely want to check that out.
I think it's on one of the streaming things,
Okay.
Prime Video or something.
Okay, definitely.
What inspired you to reimagine this?
Yeah. So I'm like a historian, and I'm just always thinking of the story behind the story. So like I grew up knowing that like Emmett Till, and that is what sparked the civil rights movement. But then you think about, I also live in Bronzeville, and so 2 days after we got working at the Chicago Defender Charity's office, and so I'm seeing like all these stories together, and knowing that like it was not an easy thing. Like today, if we want something to go viral, we're gonna go publish it post it right now, like, and it's easy to get out. But he could have lost advertising. He could have lost his company for doing something so courageous. So I wanted to know, like, after reading this book, like, what was that moment like? And I started seeing all the power people that were there with him. Like, okay, it was something there. So yeah, we just started to put it together.
Good job.
Thank you.
For a stage production of the play, do you imagine showing the photo? And if so, when? And if not, why not?
So we did. We showed the photo. We did this at University of Chicago, right, in August. And we talked about that. We were like, do we not want to? And us as an ensemble, we voted to show the photo. So when they have the moment where David is saying, like, here it is, brace yourself, they hold it up, and the photo is, we show it. And so we let people know, like, hey, trigger warning, this is going to be, saying you have the decision to stay or not. But we think it's important to show the photo because that's what the family wanted. And so we don't want to water it down.
Yeah. It's a wonderful piece of work. Thanks for sharing it with us. As individuals, has your involvement in the play changed your experience of the incident?
I think, for me, yes, but I think it's more so just like you learn about these things, they feel so far away. And so one of the first activities we did when we came for the first rehearsal, we had to all kind of go do a little research about who our people were, because they were real people. And my character, Simeon Booker, died almost at 100 years old, like 3 or 4 years ago. He was a chief. I was correspondent for Jet. He was known in the federal government. He loved the press. And so it's like, oh, this is like not that far away, And I think that energy probably needs to be in society more. These things aren't as far away as they seem. We're 2 generations removed from them,
And that's also what connected me, was the connection. It galvanized, in a lot of ways, another exercise that, which I thought was brilliant with Nikki and the director at the time, Quinna, asked that we bring a photo in important, so it doesn't matter, modern, old, or whatever. And that was a big thing for me. I have a photograph of an uncle who was a mentor to Martin Luther King, a documented mentor who encouraged him to go to study Thoreau at Boston University from Morehouse. He was his inspiration. It's noted in his autobiography. And again, like you said, it's not that far away. My mom lived to be 94 years old. She just died in 2020. And, though her parents died when she was young, she knew her mother and father and spoke with them. She was born in 1925. She was the youngest of 8, which means her parents were born in 18-something. They may not have been, slaves or whatever, but their parents were certainly either children or something of that nature, slavery. So the connection is still there. I talked to my mom. We talked to her parents who, those things do pass down, so to speak, like he spoke about. His children didn't have that connection. And so, time, photographs are important, and to be able to connect to the gravity of it is what somewhat, changed me. It's still connected there because, about digging, 2 things that Nikki pointed out. One, to this day, the town in which it happened, they do, there's a monument to Emmett with a municipal sign. Municipal sign. And they have to change it just about every year because of the people that drive by and shoot it.
It gets shot up all the time.
Right now to this day. And, as we all know, or if you know the story, the woman, the real impetus of the story, who said that Emmett had whistled or whatever at her, she never was prosecuted. She died.
She recanted.
Say again?
She recanted.
Yeah, she recanted
Before she
saying
died,
that she didn't do that, but nothing ever happened. She never suffered any consequences. And,
She was dying.
not so much that she didn't and died, with times going on, but the initial reason that she didn't suffer consequences, that tone and why, it still persists today.
Can I segue to that too?
Please.
I have a different experience in that my mother and her siblings actually went to view the body of Emmett Till. So this is a story that I've gotten. My mother was 10, and she's the middle child. So my grandmother and grandfather thought it was important enough to take them, to show them what this was. And I think for America, it was the first time that the brutality of racism was put on the forefront for everyone to see. There had to be an acknowledgement. There had to be a reckoning. There had to be an answer. And I think that one side of the coin had to face who they were. The other side had to face who they had become because of the levels of oppression. For me, I'm in my 50s. Every generation or so, I have to ask the question, how did we get here? Again and again, to the point where I'm sick of asking the question, because the foundation, the construct of why things like Emmett Till, George Floyd, or whoever else has been brutalized in this particular system happens is because of what the ideology is, the base ideology in this country is. We are having to relive this every year because there's still not an acknowledgement that there is a difference in how we view each other. There's a caste system. And until that thing is destroyed, every generation, we're gonna have another reminder and another reminder. And here it is, we've got 2 days, and I hate to get on a soapbox, but we got 2 days left of what's about to be eradicated, right? Black History Month, isn't that on the chopping board too? From a country who thinks that that's okay not to acknowledge that we have some issues that need to be addressed at a fundamental level. Emmett Till was the beginning of the civil rights movement. We are still fighting for a lot of the same rights today, 70 years later. Why is that? That is the question. That is the question that you have to answer for yourself and figure out what your contribution is to either its continuation or its eradication. Sorry.
You can have a soapbox.
Right. Just to piggyback off of what you said, my grandmother went to the funeral, as well. My grandparents, they came to Chicago from Mississippi during the Great Migration. And some of the connection I also have is that Burr Oak, you know, one of the only cemeteries to bury Black people because we couldn't be buried anywhere else. That is where Emmett is and Mamie is, and that is where my grandparents are, you know, as well. So when I go, you know, clean off my grandfather's headstone, I go by Emmett and I go by Mamie.
There you go.
I want to say that I value greatly the question that you asked about why, you know, like how's this shifted. Knowing that Nikki is continuously doing this work, knowing that people still care with a passion about his story and our stories. I think that is one of the things that, like, picking up, being even gifted the opportunity to read for this iteration, I think that's what continues to ground me in, like, understanding, like, my work doesn't stop as an artist, and it's not just in the realm of artistry that I create my activism, but it's also in knowing my history. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and I've been up here 12 years, so when I think about what I know of Kentucky history and what I know of ancestors that moved from Kentucky to come to Chicago, like, I think of many different instances in which the Great Migration plays a major role in what decisions I made, how my parents have made decisions. When I think about Alice, the idea of having to run from what she's already experienced and what her family has gone through, right? And I think it's beautiful for us to be able to humanize these people and not just see all of the people that are historical figures as monolithic and untouchable and inaccessible. It's like, no, there was fear even in the strength, you know? So I thank you for doing that. Yeah.
And I think I'll jump in and add. Yeah, so, and it'll be brief, but I think one of the things that really, a huge impact on me was to be reminded of how much fear is like the main antagonist for any type of change that you want to make. And it's rightfully so when, in the end of the day, we really don't want to fight, right? We really don't want to be in a state of mind where we're at war or hate each other, right? But there's always those instances where somebody will or something will try it, and you have to push, right? You have no choice. So you have to deal not only with the fear, but with the fear of the community, and then finding a way for everybody to come together, because in the end, we do rely on each other to be able to push forward, right? When I first saw the Emmett Till photo as a kid, my grandmother had a Jet magazine. I think I was very much disconnected from it. Like, it was just more of a thing, right? And then being able to see and witness, like, Trayvon Martin or George Floyd, and how those very things galvanized the civil rights movement 2.0. And then you see how these things mirror, where you see, like, when things like this happens and it brings out that fear in you, you still have to push forward, right? And there's so many ways of doing that. You can do that through art, right? Telling stories, marching, the legal system. Some people very much will start to riot, right? Because the voice of the unheard needs to make themselves known, right? So when they can't speak, when they can't advocate for themselves, you find a way to be able to make your voice heard, right? So it's being mindful of those things that, you know, fear is always there, and pushing through and then finding a way of self-expression the best way you know how, until someone says, okay, it is time for us to see past this and find a way to connect. I'm optimistic, but I'm also a realist too.
Yeah, in the micro, or the macro, should I say, in the macro fear, you know, that's the big thing, so to speak. It's all big, it's intimidating, you know, it's a challenge. You know, you can feel small or paralyzed in some ways. But in the micro, which is the impetus of the story again, you can be human. We can be human to one another. That's something we can control right here on our level, at a small level. Like, what can we do? Everybody can't be big. Everybody doesn't have those personalities, but we all have use. And at the very micro, it's used for one another. And that's a big thing I get out of this as well.
I went to the Women's March in Washington DC in 2017. There was something like 500,000 people there.
Yes.
My favorite sign was, I can't believe I'm having to deal with this shit.
Yeah.
Still having to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like David said, like, you know, so I don't feel like fighting. I don't feel like I'd rather, like, I don't want to have to lose my career for taking a bow and lose my NFL career. I want to not have to be able to go to Target, you know, but like.
We love Target.
We love Target, but here we are, you know. So, yeah. All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you everyone for being here, and if we could just have one more round of applause for our performers.